So hello everybody and welcome to another Thursday Thinks. Today is all about why my horses have no shoes. Those of you who knew, my name is Marianne and I'm the founder of Naturally Willer, which is a source of information to help you to heal your horse, mind, body and soul, naturally. Now, as I said, today is all about why my horses have no shoes. Now, this is my opinions, my experiences. You may have your own, in which case let me know in the comments below what they are. I'd love to hear about other people's journeys. So when people think of horses, they automatically think that they've got shoes on. I used to think this as well. They had to be shoed or shod to function. That was my thought when I was younger, before I had my own horses, and I thought, this is expensive, I wonder if there's any cheaper option. But it's something that's automatic, and today's topic is actually brought to us by Nellie. Nellie asked me this question, so I thought I'd discuss it in my Thursday thing. So here you go, Nell, here's the answer for you. So she automatically thought that horses have to have shoes to go on the road. Let's talk about the history a moment. So the first evidence of horseshoes goes back to 400 BCE, very long time ago. Now, they were made of plants, raw hides, leather straps, and were actually referred to by the Romans as hippo sandals, as in hippo sandals. Really, really interesting, actually, if you look back into it. And the ancient Asians used to make their shoes out of woven plants. So really, really interesting that the horseshoes go back that far. But the actual iron nailed horseshoes are traced back to the Celts, possibly back to 55 BCE, just before the Roman invasion. So horseshoes have been around for a very, very long time. And have they really changed that much? I mean, you've got things around us that are constantly changing, constantly evolving, constantly developing. I mean, there's a new Apple iPhone out every 2 bloody seconds. But have horseshoes changed that much? Do they need to? Now, horses originally come from the basins of America, and they're designed to live in more arid, drier environments than perhaps the UK and other European countries. Other European countries like the UK, where I am, the weather is very wet, which means that the horse's hooves get wet, which means they soften, which means they then come into various issues. Their hooves crack, they get abscesses. And if you add that to the ancient Roman roads, the straight, hard roads, that is a lot of damage to the horse's hooves. So you can see why horses were shod in the first place, and they continue to be shod because that's the way things have been, especially if you're going into, say, the 1800s, where horses are pulling carriages and carts left, right and centre. You couldn't turn a corner without a horse being there, which I would have loved. But, you know, the horses had to have shoes on to protect their feet, especially in English weather, especially with the way that they were also kept in paddocks, in stables, because there's not enough space, because people couldn't afford to have more land, or to protect them from laminitis and things like that. Now, initially shoeing was solely for veterinary to protect the horse's feet, and then it's become a day-to-day thing for most people to have their horses shod. Now, whether they have their horses shod all round, so all 4 hooves, or whether it's just on the front, because that's where the horse carries most of its weight, it depends on the person, depends on the horse. And obviously there are some veterinary reasons to do remedial shodding, where you realign the horse's body, or it's growing in a certain way and you're trying to protect it. And I'm sure I've never really come across them, I've never had to deal with them, so I can't really express an opinion on those. But the Major was shod when I first had him, but none of my others are and never will be, because that's my way of doing things and the way that I look after them. So if you think about it, I know I keep going on, my horse is on the paddock paradise track system, woo woo woo. And yes, it is amazing because of the natural movement. Now, horses' hooves are like our feet when they're up there like that, and when they put the pressure down, it spreads, and it does that as they move. Now, it doesn't seem like that much, but if you did it in slow motion, you'd see it as the horse puts its hoof down, it spreads if it didn't have any shoes on. Like your foot does when your foot hits the floor, it spreads out just that little bit, which is why your shoes are okay if you tie them up when you've got your leg crossed over yourself and you're tying it up. And as soon as you put your foot down, oh, that's a bit tighter, especially if you're trying shoes on in the shops. So the horse's hoof naturally expands and contracts, but it can't do that when it's got a shoe nailed to it. I mean, if you had a shoe stuck to your foot when it was stuck on that way, when your foot was elevated, because obviously horses are shod when the hooves are elevated. They're at the back, aren't they? That's the way the farrier does it. I can't give you an image. Stop trying. So it doesn't always count into the fact that the horse's foot expands. Now, whilst you wouldn't have thought that was too much of an issue, because horses' hooves don't obviously expand that much. They don't go boom, and yeah, it's not like a duck's foot. It seems more solid. But if you lie still on your bed for days on end, your legs swell because your heart doesn't pump that forcefully enough for the full circulation. Your actual movement of your legs and your muscles in your leg cause the blood to flow. And it's the same thing with the horse. There have been recent studies, actually, if you check out Barefoot Horse Magazine's Instagram page, you've seen that there's been recent research done, which shows that in the winter, when the weather's cold and our horses are trudging through mud, that a shod horse's hoof is colder and goes colder quickly than a naturally barefoot horse, because of the stimulation of the muscles contracting and expanding, helping the blood flow go up and down the leg, and also the movement of the hoof contracting and expanding also encourages blood flow. So whilst yes, we're not in the winter at the moment and it's summer outside and everybody wants to get out on their horse and go for a trotter down the lane and off for a country ride, which is just amazing. If you're going for that, good luck, hope you're having fun. But my horses are still not shod, and they wouldn't be shod even if they were doing that, because I don't think for my horses that it's necessary. You might for your own, and if you do, awesome, let me know in the comments below. But my horses are on the paddock paradise track system, so they get the constant movement, so they get better blood flow, which means that the coronet band gets more blood flow. That's the top of the hoof, which means that the hoof that's developing out of that band and descending down gets proper blood flow, which means it gets good nutrients, which means that it can grow a very, very healthy hoof without me doing a whole hell of a lot, to be honest. The horse doesn't work for me, to the point where when our trimmer, the lovely Helen, comes to trim my horse's hooves, she sometimes asks me to soak their hooves in water just to get them so that they aren't a drama to deal with, because they're just so tough because of the constant movement, because of the constant flexing, the good nutrients get into the horse's hooves. Because of all that, the horse's hooves are way too strong for some of her equipment to get through. Now, whilst that is great and a little bit of effort for Helen to deal with, it also means that my horses are better on the roads than some that are shod, and I have less ailments to deal with. Because my horses don't have hooves don't have shoes holding their hooves in a specific way, they have less abscesses as well. Now, I know that some people with barefoot horses have abscesses left, right and centre, and that's something for you to deal with your own horse. Perhaps there's something else internally going wrong and it's showing up in an abscess. I don't know. If you want me to help you, I'm more than happy to do so. Drop me a message. But Without the horse's hoof flexing and contracting, bacteria can just sit and grow, which means that infections can take place, which is your abscesses, which is why the major in the winter, when he was shod, he would abscess left, right, and centre, and I was constantly soaking his feet in Epsom salt water just to pull it out. But after making him go barefoot, after that initial phase of his hoof going, oh my god, I can do life, and there have been a few issues for him adapting to that, which anybody would have. It's like you, if you spend all your life with shoes going outside and then you suddenly go barefoot outside, you've got to take a little bit of getting used to doing that. You know, you don't have the thick skin, and whilst, okay, your horses aren't growing a thick skin on their hooves, you've got to get used to that sensation. I mean, if you walk on a very pebbly beach, it's instantly, oh, shivers up your spine, like, oh my goodness me, because there's suddenly so much sensation coming up for your feet. And it's a similar sort of thing. So there was an adaptation period for him, which, yeah, okay, it took a bit of time, but once he's been through that, I think we've only had 1 or 2 abscesses since, when the weather's been absolutely ridiculous for him and he's had to deal with it. And because he's 29 years old, he's doing really, really well considering. But even his hooves, when he's in the right place and he's getting the great nutrition that I'm giving him from the Thunderbrooks foods that I'm feeding him, and all the extra bits and pieces that I do for him, not to mention the movement on the paddock paradox track system, even his hooves are really, really firm and hard. And he toe taps when he goes out on the road. His back legs, he doesn't bother. He goes, oh, stuff it, I'm 29, I can't be bothered. And okay, he might not have the musculature in his back end anymore to fully pick up his feet constantly to work through the movement. But when he used to have shoes on, or if he was just shod at the front, he would drag his toes, which he still does, but he would damage his hooves quite severely from toe tapping. And now when I take him out, okay, there is a little bit of damage from that friction on the road, but it's nowhere near what it was. And that's not because he's getting out any less, it's because his hooves are firmer, they're healthier, which means that they're stronger and the road has less effect. Now, you'll also get the fact that, I'm sure most of you horses will have heard this before, but the more your horses work on, or work, we'll say work, the more they work on a road, the more hacking they do on roads, the more road work that they do, full stop, the harder their hooves get anyway, because of the repeat concussion on the hard surface. Their bodies go, oh, I'm having to deal with something very, very firm under my hooves, I best throw out the protection. So the body then puts all the energy, or not all the energy, but a lot more energy and nutrition into ensuring that the hooves are the best quality that they can provide. So that's another reason for me to say that I prefer my horses barefoot. So going barefoot is something that not everybody does. And it is a little bit of a journey, because it's not just a case of taking the shoes off, it's a case of making sure the body's in the right place, that the nutrition's in the right place as well. And actually, a lot of issues show themselves out through the hooves. So it's not something that many people go down. Some people don't even know about the journey, don't even know it was an option. I didn't know it was an option when I first had the major and I was doing things the traditional way. But now that I know differently, and I'm doing things more of a natural way, focusing on helping my horses as natural as I can to be as natural as I can, or as they can, it really, really opens your eyes to how much human interference actually makes things worse than better in some situations. Not every situation, but some. And the horse's body, like our own, knows what it needs to do to survive. And sometimes we just get in the way of that. So, is going barefoot Cheaper? No. A simple answer is no, because the expertise of a good barefoot trimmer or equine podiatrist, whatever it is or type of person that you utilise, it is not cheaper because there's different knowledge there. And whilst they aren't having to is a lot more focused on the holistic health of the horse. So with barefoot trimmers or equine podiatrist or whoever you're using, you have more of a whole body approach of looking at the movement of the horse, as well as the hooves itself, as well as the nutrition, as well as what the body's doing. So to me, that seemed, well, to me, it felt like more of a good option. So if you think about the fact that horseshoes have been around since 400 BCE and they haven't truly changed that much, can they change that much? It's like our bras. There's a lot of talk about the moment about how ladies' bras haven't changed in over 100 years. So, you know, I mean, a bra, the usual design of it hasn't changed since the 1900s, 1800s, whatever. But that's only 100 years, and people are in uproar sometimes about the state of them. But horseshoes haven't changed in 2,500 years or thereabouts. Shouldn't that be something that we focus on for the health of our horses, for their overall benefits, so that we can enjoy them for longer, so that they can live more fulfilling lives? I think now, I know that there are different options at the moment. Some people are coming out with some great inventions. I mean, I've seen some where you can Velcro protection onto the hoof and you just have these Velcro points stuck to the hoof, which I thought was funny. But if they work, that's amazing. I personally haven't tried them because I haven't needed to. And there's also the other option of hoof boots. Now, hoof boots is something that I have tried. And I tried them on Princess, and it made the world of a difference to her to have, like we have shoes, there was space for her feet to expand and contract, whilst also giving her soles the protection that they needed, and that all points of our hoof the protection needed, so that she felt more comfortable walking. Now, obviously, that was more of a medical situation because of her severe Cushing's and laminitis. But it was a great option for her. And me personally, if any of my herd ever needed protection on their hooves because the quality dropped for some reason, while they had an illness or an injury or something, and we were still going out, but their hooves weren't keeping up with that, I would personally be finding them hoof boots, because that's my personal preference right now, rather than strapping a bit of metal on, because I have that option. And I know most people don't know that option's there, and I know that hoof boots are becoming more widely known, but it's still a bit of a gamble, like barefoot shoes for people. They exist, there's more and more companies for them, but people are still a bit wary of them because it's new and it's not what we used to. But maybe that can change, and I can see the more that I talk about these things and the more people that I interact with who are either from the horsey world or not, that the attitude is changing and everybody's heading more back to the roots, back to nature, back to the natural way of doing things, and seeing if human interaction really is of benefit or not. And that is really, really interesting, and it would be interesting in, say, 50 years to see where we've got to with hoof care, with the way that we deal with hoof problems and other problems in our lives. Will we be going more of a natural route? Will there be an extension from medicine into more natural ways of doing things for people and for the animals? Not to mention the way they're keeping them. I mean, that's what I talk about on my YouTube channel and on here and on Instagram as well. I talk about natural ways of keeping, different ways of keeping your horse to help it mentally, physically, and emotionally. So maybe that's message will expand further and further, and more people will be doing things more for the actual benefit of their horse rather than what they think is to benefit their horse. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. So my throat is going dry, so I think I'm going to bring it to a close just there. I hope you've enjoyed this, and let me know in the comments below what you've learned. If you've got any questions, also let me know. And if you've got anything that you want me to talk about next, perhaps for my next Thursday things, just let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the Facebook page, join the Facebook group, check us out on Instagram and naturally_Willa, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm absolutely loving how that's progressing over there, so join the group that I've got over there. Such great people. And I will see you next week for my next Thursday. Thanks. Thank you. Bye.